again. I'm, of course, your host, Lowbow, and thank you for tuning in to Lowbow's Spark, the power of ADHD. I gotta be honest, it has been fun doing this podcast thing, and I sincerely hope that you have gotten something out of it. Like I said a while back, if one person takes away just one thing, then this has been successful. So without further ado, as always, I need to let you know that I am not a psychiatrist that specializes in ADHD, nor am I qualified to tell you why I feel ADHD is so powerful. I am simply going to tell you why I believe that it is, and I hope you can accept that. In today's episode, I will be explaining the fifth and final element to my Spark strategy, and then, with a little bit of luck, bring it all together for you at the end.
We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure. We've come too far. There's too much to lose. We've got to keep our composure.
The fifth element of my Spark strategy is knowledge. And no, I am not talking about the kind of knowledge you gain by reading a textbook in school. And I'm not talking about how much you know about a particular subject. And I don't care how smart you are or what you scored on the SAT. None of those things are representative of the knowledge element of Spark. I am talking about the unique and overall knowledge about the important things in life that are extremely powerful in people with ADHD. It is what we have learned from remembering almost every significant experience in our lives that makes us the most perceptive people on earth. ADHD knowledge has the power of perception so heightened in our minds, we are easily able to read people or a situation almost instantly. We can tell a lot about a person within the first 5 seconds of meeting them. But that aside, ADHD people do learn and acquire knowledge to levels that actually far surpass most other people. And of course, 90% of people are going to argue with me on this. Maybe it's because, again, stats show that we do poorly in school, and that we don't keep the same job as long as others, and that our divorce rate is higher, etc. All those things. And those are unfortunately true. So does this mean we can't learn as well as others? Well, hell no.
Well, Columbus wasn't looking for America, my man, but that seems to work out for everybody, didn't it?
So let me be very clear about this. Telling us how to do something or showing us a specific skill will not work now, and no matter how hard you try, it will never work.
Unfortunately, no one can be told you have to see it for yourself.
Because it is the environment where we learn that will dictate how much knowledge we will absorb. It is the place where we are learning that matters. The subject at hand we could probably easily grasp, but we won't if we are not learning in the place out there in life that proves what we are absorbing actually matters and can be useful. In short, you have to prove to us that what you think is important actually is. In that it is something that we will use in the future or need to know how to do. This is traditionally why ADHD people have so much trouble in school. You are sitting there being dictated to with absolutely no proof of how what you are learning will help you in life. You are just told, get good grades and you will be successful. And for most of the world, this is true. But not for the ADHD mind. A classroom setting for ADHD people might as well be a prison cell. It is a prison for our mind, and the only way to escape it is to guess what? Exhibit all the symptoms that are so characteristic with ADHD.
Personal stuff like you running through the neighborhood drunk and naked.
That and some other stuff.
Be restless. Cause trouble in class. Doodle aimlessly. Or, if you paid attention to episode 2, read sports articles. Squirrel moment right out of the gate, but why were we forced to read things like Romeo and Juliet? Why did we read this again? So let me get this straight. Correct me if I'm wrong. Teenagers that are already going through huge changes physically, mood fluctuations, and a wide variety of emotions, all combined with the fact that their hormones are kicking in at an unreal rate, all at the same time we are reading Romeo and Juliet? You've got to be kidding me. Whose idea was this? Yeah, this is a good idea. Let's introduce today's teenagers to a story about sneaking around behind our parents' backs to get laid.
I lost my virginity to your daughter, for crying out loud.
And then when it doesn't work out with our first love, huge shocker that is, you kill yourself. That's a great idea. Nice work. Good education. But we're told we read it because it's, quote, historically important. Okay, so I'm a teenager in high school and we are tested on this. Right? This is a test that we're going to take. So forgive me, Juliet, but this story in no way helps me get laid by the hot girl sitting in front of me, which is really all that matters to guys at that age anyways. And we wonder why school has this label as being boring. Maybe it's because it is. Now, don't get upset with me here if you're a teacher, because truth be told, I am still very close with some teachers whose classes I failed back in the day. I respect good teachers, and I appreciate what they do, but let's be real honest about this. For every great teacher, there are a handful of them that resorted to teaching because they failed at their subject in real life. If you teach business, but you are not out there in the field proving that you are a successful businessman, how can I trust that what you are saying is something to pay attention to? This is how the brilliant ADHD mind works. It has the perception to read a teacher's personality and know whether or not they are legit. And this will make all the difference in how much effort an ADHD person is going to give. We challenge everything, and it's honestly out of frustration that we, in the back of our minds, know how meaningless what we're learning is, because it's what someone else thinks is so important. But the bottom line is we're going to be tested on this, and we know we're not going to do well. And that's how we're judged at that age, is how well we're doing in school. But unfortunately, for most ADHD minds, school is kryptonite. So our brains do not have the ability to learn something unless we experience it. It has to be a real-life scenario, but if it is, we will be the most knowledgeable people you have ever come into contact with, because we are remembering everything that we have experienced in life. And we know how to connect the dots in terms of people. And if you are good at reading people, you will be successful in anything you are trying to accomplish. So knowledge lies at the end of the spark strategy because it either keeps your spark lit long enough to start a fire, or it gives you the ability to strike another match. Again, the element below carries the one above when it has to, but in the final element of knowledge, your spark will go one of two possible directions. It either ignites a fire, or your spark goes out. Wow, okay, well, this is depressing. It's the last episode, and I'm telling you that your spark could go out. I'm sure you're thinking, well, this kind of blows. I'm never listening to anything Lobau says ever again. And I don't blame you. And yes, unfortunately, your spark can go out. After all, remember, a spark is a momentary flash of light. Momentary. The bottom line is, some sparks light fires and others do not. But a spark is a small, but noticeable trace of something that could become bigger. That could become bigger. The best part about a spark is that if it does go out, all you have to do is strike another match and try again. And that is the direction we will be talking about first today. What if your spark goes out? How do you know that it's out, and what do you do? You know your spark has gone out if you are no longer reliable to your job or other people in general. Your spark is out if others just can't rely on you, and you don't even want to be reliable, nor do you really care. If your reliability begins to suffer, this is a huge warning sign that your spark could go out, Because when you stop being reliable, you can't get your attitude back. So your heart now has no chance, and because of that, you are now slow. Kryptonite has set in at this point, and we are weak right now. At this point, you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it is crippling you. ADHD is now a disorder again, and not a powerful advantage. If your reliability to others or to your task at hand begins to suffer, unfortunately, your spark is about to go out. This is just the honest truth. But Superman never died from kryptonite, did he? He was only weakened for a brief moment, but then what happened? He came back stronger than ever. Keep that in mind. So now, it is time to make an adjustment. And this is where you will use your knowledge. For ADHD, when you are in the knowledge element, it is almost always at the end of a day, project, or task. And ADHD people learn best by reflecting on what we have experienced, not by what we are told. Reflection and experience is what we use to learn. When your spark goes out, start searching for that box of matches. Grab a drink and go somewhere alone and start thinking about why your spark is out. Reflect and see if you can pinpoint what happened or what you did that caused it to go out and learn from it. Acquire all of the knowledge that you can of why this happened, and don't leave anything out. And if you have ADHD, you won't. Reflection is the ADHD classroom, and we are both the teacher and the student.
It's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe.
Superman learns his best lessons from himself because he is naturally farther ahead than everyone else, because he has more powers than they do. So does ADHD. Now you're going to say, but Lobau, there's no medical backing of what you're saying. Do you even know the science behind the ADHD brain? What doctors with degrees have said about it? And those are incredibly fair questions. You probably can guess my answer to these questions, but my answers are that I really don't care what they say. But if it helps you to trust me, then yes, I can say that I do know the medical side of ADHD. But would it matter? I said from episode 1 that Lobau's spark is just an idea that is meant to motivate and encourage. So would it matter that I've shared this strategy with people with and without ADHD and that it has worked for both? And on the medical side, would it matter to you that I know that the brain's anterior cingulate has 2 separate functional zones to it? One zone, and I'm sorry about this, but this is the only part of Lobau's spark that is going to get somewhat educational, and I really hate saying that, but it's just, if it helps you to trust me, I'm going to say it. So, the anterior cingulate has 2 separate functional zones to it. One zone, or the upper zone, lights up whenever there is a conflict or a competition. It activates in order for you to see the long-term consequences of your actions. In short, it buys you time to contemplate and regulate your decision. And furthermore, it buys you time to make a decision that is in your long-term best interest, not just your short-term. The other structure to the anterior cingulate comes into play whenever there is an emotional conflict. So this structure regulates your emotion and allows you to contemplate the consequences of your actions long term if you act on this emotion that has just come up based on the moment. This is where the frontal lobe is going to calm down the emotional system in a way. All of this is basically what represents your limbic system. The limbic system is the emotional part of the brain. And it has been shown that the midline structure or anterior cingulate in someone with ADHD does not activate. In a sense, That means that if you have ADHD, your anterior cingulate cannot regulate your emotion, or as science puts it, your limbic system. Which means that ADHD is a disorder of not being able to regulate your emotion. So we have the same emotions as everyone else, but we can't control them as well. Science tells us this. So emotions in someone with ADHD have not been given the top-down management that others automatically have when regulating their feelings. Now, the frontal lobes in the brain are responsible for taking the information you have absorbed and then using it in your life. The back part of the brain acquires information. The front part puts that information to use. In the ADHD brain, there is a separation of these two parts. In short, based on science, the ADHD person has the knowledge of what to do, but can't do what they know. Whereas a, quote, normal brain doesn't have this separation. A normal brain takes the information absorbed and then applies it because they were born with a bridge or a connection, in a sense, from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. We weren't born with this bridge. So guess what we have to do? We have to build the bridge ourselves. ADHD people have to build their own bridge. I'm sorry, but ADHD is so badass, people. It really is. The fact that we have to build the bridge in our brain to connect the parts required to use the knowledge we have means that through this process, we can recognize all of the brain's shortcuts. We know what parts of the bridge are strongest and what parts of the bridge are weakest. We know this bridge better than anyone else because we built it. It wasn't provided for us. And I think that's really important. So because we know our bridge inside and out, we are much better at analyzing the circuits and connection in other people's brains as well. And in my opinion, this is why we are so perceptive, which makes analyzing the reasons why other people say what they say and act how they act very easy for us to understand. This is an incredible power for us. We know the reasons why you say what you say and do what you do.
Indeed, you are powerful, as the Emperor has foreseen.
You take it for granted, but we don't, because we have had to do the work to build the bridge. So if your spark has gone out, find a different place to start building that bridge in your brain. Once you think you have found a good environment in which to build this bridge, go to sleep. And like I said way before, I know that sleeping is hard for ADHD people, so why not make it something that matters, like a competition? I started doing this a couple years ago and it works. Instead of setting your alarm to wake up at, let's say, 5 a.m., set a countdown timer instead. So for example, if you are trying to go to bed at 10 p.m. and you want to wake up at 5, set a timer for 7 hours. Your brain will still be working at beating this timer while you're asleep. And with ADHD, the brain always working is one of the perks. Set a timer, not an alarm. Let me know how it works. Then after you go to sleep, guess what you're going to do in the morning? Are you going to start building this bridge slowly? Nope. You are going to start construction on your brain's bridge with speed. And by this point, you should know the rest. Are you starting to kind of get an idea of how all this connects? I hope so.
Cato, we're dealing with a man of infinite brilliance and infinite madness.
This is what I do if a particular spark in my life has gone out and I know it has no chance of starting a fire. I look for another box of matches and then I strike another one. I create another spark and work towards igniting that fire. Now, this is just one of a possible 2 ways knowledge is used in my spark strategy. The second part of knowledge element is when your spark is still lit, when your spark has not gone out. This is when you are just killing it. You are faster, driven by passion, your attitude has kept your heart strong, and you are extremely reliable to others and to your duties. Right now, you are using spark the way it should be used, and each element is working constantly at picking up the other one. And now you have reached the knowledge element with a spark that is still lit. This is ideally where you want to be. We are now taking an already lit spark and incorporating the knowledge element in order to take our reliability to the next level. So at the end of the day, grab your drink of choice and let your brain completely wander in every direction it wants to go. This should be really easy if you have ADHD. Listen to inspirational songs or watch inspiring movie scenes on your phone, whatever it takes. But while doing this, think about what you have experienced throughout the day. And since you have ADHD knowledge, you won't leave anything out. Connect the dots for what happened that day and how what happened in the past affected today. The current moment you are in and how everything you experienced throughout this day, this present moment in time, could affect tomorrow and possibly years down the road. Think about how the past played into today. Connect the dots. And I guarantee you, if you have ADHD, you connect them better than anyone else. So now we're going to have a squirrel moment and story time. So about 8 years ago, one of the best employees I ever had, and this is, keep in mind, this is 8 years ago. One of the best employees I ever had was scheduled to work on a project on a Saturday at 9 a.m. And honestly, he was truly one of the most, if not the most reliable employees I've ever had. But the night before he had to work at 9 a.m. the next day, I was in the knowledge element. I had a drink in hand and I was contemplating all the details of the day, of the past, of the present, of the future, just like I described. And I remembered something. 2 years prior to him having to work on that Saturday, this same employee worked this exact same weekend, but had overslept due to a party the night before that he attended. Work didn't go as well as it could have, and I distinctly remember asking him, well, was it worth it? Now, truth be told, it sounded like a kick-ass party.
God, I went a little bit got crazy last night.
And that's actually, yeah, I'm kind of jealous of how awesome this party sounded.
With all the people here and the speakers, I thought we were just having a small get-together.
But what's important is that I recalled him telling me that he goes to this same party every year on the exact same dates. But it dawned on me that he was scheduled to work the next day at 9 a.m., but that he was a little slow 2 years ago when he had to work the exact same dates at the exact same time. I had to text him. I couldn't help myself. I texted him to confirm that he was good for the next day. And he responded 5 minutes later telling me he was all good and everything was handled and he would take care of it. So, sounds like all is well, right? Well, not necessarily. This employee was so good at communication over the years that he worked that it took approximately 1 to 3 minutes for him to reply to me over the course of the time that he worked. This time was different. It took him 5 minutes for him to respond. Now, someone without ADHD wouldn't think anything of a 2-minute difference in a time of response to a text message. But someone with ADHD knows this is uncharacteristic for a particular individual because our brains have used its perception to dive into why this 2-minute delay could be a crisis. The knowledge of the ADHD mind shifted through years of research on how quickly this person responds to texts, how they respond to texts, and what they are thinking and what kind of mood they are in when they respond to the text. Sounds like overkill, right? Not necessarily. This 2-minute delay was a vital piece of information for me. After knowing that the next day my employee might be slower, what did I do? I finished my drink, listened to some motivational stuff on my phone, and then went to sleep. Set a timer for 7 hours. Actually, at this point, it was more like set a timer for 3 hours. I woke up really early, went into work before anyone else was there, handled what I knew my employee would be slow at that day so that if he wasn't his usual self, no one would notice, because I had already handled what potentially could have been an issue. Needless to say, my employee was late that day. And he was slower due to the party the night before. The knowledge that was processed by my ADHD brain to determine the difference in his response from his usual 1 to 3 minutes to 5 minutes triggered what I knew about this exact same kind of work he had to do 2 years prior, and the description of the party, and when it would be held again 2 years later. This is an example of the ADHD brain's amazing way of connecting tiny pieces of information and then relating them to a bigger picture. This is a superhuman power for us. But again, we will only learn from reflecting on experiences from the past and current moment we are in, and then contemplating and relating those events to analyze what will happen tomorrow and years down the road. The bottom line? The ADHD knowledge learned from by experience assisted my reliability to both my job and my employee at the same time. Your knowledge picks up your reliability if it needs to, but it can go further than that. But he was sincere when he asked how I was able to do this and why I rescued him without anyone knowing. When I explained to him how I did this, he wanted to know how to do it as well. So I went over this strategy with him, and from that point on, he completely took charge of the rest of our staff. And things have never operated better since that happened 8 years ago. Once I, in a sense, delegated this knowledge, I found myself instinctively increasing my reliability as well. Now, this is really important. Sometimes, in order for your spark to light a fire, you have to teach someone else how to strike a match for you. Let me ask you this. If you are in a management role at work, does your employee's reputation affect yours? Of course it does. When your employees succeed, you succeed. So if your reliability isn't where it needs to be, but through the knowledge you have of your craft, you have taught it to others, you are still reliable whether you are physically there or not. Since then, I have not had to attend 70% of the things that I did prior. And guess what that did? It gave me the time to be reliable to more and more people in my life, to my friends, to my family. And because of this, I went from the casual single life to having a girlfriend to marriage. A response to my text took 5 minutes instead of 3. Was that 2-minute delay important? It was to me. And it would be to anyone with ADHD. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What experiences in your life could you reflect on that could spawn such a positive domino effect? Knowledge is a superhuman power for people with ADHD. So at this point, the knowledge you possess has assisted and increased your reliability to others. When you get to this point, your spark will have been lit long enough to ignite a fire. Congratulations on that, because it is not easy to do. You started with speed, which put you ahead of everyone else. When you got tired, you used your heart's passion to speed you back up. When your passion became so heightened and emotional that you almost burned out, you used a focused and no bullshit attitude, which jump-started your heart. When you knew your attitude was taking a turn down a road it shouldn't go, you increased your reliability to other people by helping them. When your reliability needed to increase even more, you used your incredible knowledge based on your life experiences to assist your reliability, which in turn rescued your attitude and made you focused again, which made you passionate again, which kept and maintained your incredible and superhuman speed. ADHD has an intelligence that touches each life we come into contact with, because we know life and what makes people's heart beat and how to help their heart if it is weak. And speaking of helping someone's heart, one of my wife's best friends died of mental illness 2 years ago. And the girl that died, her husband at the time was one of my friends as well, and also used to work for me. Now, if you've ever seen someone that you care about in this kind of emotional pain, it is a shock to your system. You don't know what to do. My wife was inconsolable, and my friend was just in shock. You want to talk about a crisis? So what do? I did only what I knew how to do. I used what I've always used: a spark. 2 people needed a spark. And I knew that my wife would only be okay if she saw the husband of her best friend being okay. So I poured myself a drink, and I stayed up all night thinking of what I could do. And the only reason that I was able to do this was because I knew that my job obligations were completely handled because of 8 years ago. I didn't start slow. I texted him every day. Motivational things, anything I could think of. But then I sensed that he was getting to the point where he wanted to actually maybe live life again. This kid is tough as nails, keep in mind. So my wife and I would take him out. Take him to the local establishment, have a drink, remember his wife. We would cry together, we laughed together. We did everything we could together. But if you have ADHD, you better fucking step up to the plate, because you're the only one that can do it. And let me tell you why. Someone is falling from a cliff. And your mind is one of the few in the world that can save them, because you address it immediately. You put your whole heart in it. You are passionate about it. But when your heart is overloaded and you get way too emotional, which happened to me so many times when talking to my friend and trying to get him through this, when that emotion overcomes you and it's too much, you better get your ass out there and exercise, which is what I did. And that shaped my attitude and refocused me on helping him, which in turn jump-started my heart back. And that in turn made me faster. When my attitude got to its breaking point, no amount of exercise in the world gave me the focus to continue helping. I immediately increased my reliability through communication to him at 100%. Every time he texted, I got back with him within 30 seconds. I texted him every morning, every night, for months. If he needed something, it was provided. That type of reliability energized me to get out and shape my attitude again, which in turn jump-started my heart again and kept me fast. Now, the knowledge that I had about my friend, I knew his personality and I knew what would work. And what worked was being there when called on. But I started fast. I didn't listen to everybody else when they said, oh, you got to give him time to grieve and all that. The bottom line is someone is falling from a cliff. You can't be slow in that scenario. You can't. It's a very long story short, but the guy who lost his wife 2 years ago is getting married this year. And I'm proud to be in his wedding. And my wife is proud. My friend lives again. Now, would you consider this story to be, quote, important? Did the steps taken matter? Be fast. Put your heart in it. Have the attitude to block everything else out. Be 100% reliable and use the knowledge you attained when you had to build your own bridge. And now analyze what they need and help them fast. Was that 2-minute delay in that text response important 8 years ago? Well, it was important enough where I could be reliable to my job and a close friend and my wife all at the same time. That spark 8 years ago ignited a fire, and that fire is so strong today. A spark is a momentary flash of light, and that is what we are. That is what Lobau's spark is.
You've been everywhere, and now you're here. And I don't know how you did it, but you did it.
You just have a draw to you, a magnetism that it brings people together. It makes people want to be there. It makes people want to be your friend. And you're like a brother to a lot of people, and to me especially. And you're a great friend. You've always been there for me. You've been there for just about everybody.
One of the most amazing friends that you could ever have. Once you're part of his crew, you make sure that you're making it every day in what you do. It doesn't matter what it is. It's passion. The kid is just amazing for knowing what he wants. I'm jealous of that, actually. He knows what he wants and he gets it. He possesses an intelligence that is uncanny, and he really reads people in an amazing way. You can walk into the room and pick up something and walk out, and he can tell you about who you are. And it's really impressive to hear him say these things, because he's spot on about his judgments, and it's very impressive.
When I look into his eyes, I see so much. I see something so deep, and he doesn't even have to say what he's thinking. You just know. The grit that you had, the toughness that you had, the pride that you had, the loyalty that you had. It was just something that inspired truly all of us. And I think this group wouldn't be what this group is if you weren't here. You were the glue so much for this group.
He was laser focused on what he cared about, which was to get on to the field.
Obviously very passionate about a lot of things in life, and is an example for us all to follow.
Your story has been like a huge part of my story, and I've told it wherever I've gone.
Well, yes, he's fiercely loyal and fiercely passionate, almost than anyone I've ever met. Just his ability to take a person or a situation or anything that might normally seem mundane or unremarkable, build it into this thing that becomes so big. We love your craziness.
That you are everyone's best friend.
This is the man of heart and a spirit. And it's the heart and the spirit that gets you up when you get knocked down. And it's that heart and that spirit that makes champions. And I've seen him get knocked down. But he didn't stay in. That champion got up.
All I know is that if this spark in any way has helped just one person ignite a fire in their life, Season 2 will explain how to keep your fire going. Welcome to Lobau's Spark.